Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, Marcia, for the introduction. In the coming 15 minutes, most of the time I will have bad news. But at the end, there's a hope. This is what I would like to share with you in order to move ahead what we can do. With your permission, I start off with a rather strange presentation, although Professor Zalewski has shown that before. I have taken the liberty of butchering the Sustainable Development Goals as they were originally published in a matrix format with the two most important goals to achieve, to finish poverty and to secure food availability by 2030. I used to ask my students that if you look at the 17 goals, what is the particular goal that if you take out from the matrix of 17 goals, the whole system is collapsing? Now, if the answer is not water and sanitation, then the guy is flanking. Because that is basically message number one. What I would like to leave with you today is that unless we are able to concentrate on water and sanitation as the most important driver and elements of the SDGs, we will not reach that by 2030. By the way, we will not reach it as it stands now. Even before the COVID and the Russian aggression against Ukraine, it was pretty clear that we are off the track. And as governments invested resources into the Sustainable Development Goals, things will not be achieved. Basically, because things have changed dramatically over the past 100 years, particularly the past 50 years. Just to quote a few figures. In the 20th century, the population growth was threefold, from 2 billion up to 6 billion. In the meantime, during the same period, water withdrawal has grown sixfold. So a sort of a seesaw opened that makes the whole thing sustainable. But what are the drivers that are causing this one? Of the many drivers for our discussion today, I would like to point out two. And this is a presentation basically covering the global scale, but you can go down and zoom down to the regional scale and even to the local scale. Of the many drivers, what we had over the past century, there are two most important drivers which change the shape of the game. First is the population growth, which I was referred to, threefold during the 20th century. Now we are 77 billion. Exactly 100 years from now, by 2120, there will be 12 billion human beings, which represents the carrying capacity of the ecosystems of the world. If we are not able to change the current practices, including consumption patterns, then, sorry to say, and this is bad news number one, human civilization will start to decline dramatically. Ecosystem functions will switch off with all the consequences. Added to the concentration to urban centers, 70% of humanity will be living in urban areas, which is a totally different ballgame. It's going to be. What to do about that? On top of all, we have this climate change, which is not anymore a hypothesis, but a proven fact. What can we do? And what are the most important drivers which will have an impact on our ecosystems, aquatic ecosystems particularly? Well, if you look at which are the important drivers, this guy is culpable. With today's population, we have reached a stage that half of the Homo sapienses ever walking around on the earth are our contemporaries. This had to cause changes which were not seen in human history. The other impact, the other driver rather, is this is just a recent figure with the temperature anomalies which we observed over the past 10 years. This cannot go on because our systems will collapse. What are the impacts of these two most important drivers, if you wish? First of all, what we have seen ever since the Industrial Revolution, the carbon dioxide release into the atmosphere has grown exponentially. Ever since we have regular climatic observations, and that's not a long window. We have 150 years within which we have climate series. There is an increase of the temperature. As compared to the pre-industrial age, today we have the average temperature higher by 1.1 centigrade. And if you reach the 7.6, then our systems will become unstable. And this is bad news number 2, which I'm going to prove in a few moments. The political response to that was that let's curb the carbon dioxide or any greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere and try to stabilize the climate to the pre-industrial age. This is the Paris Agreement, which pushes governments to do that. The bad news is that it took humanity nearly 300 years to screw up the environment, particularly the climate. It will not happen overnight. This is a long, long process. So the other options what we have is obviously that of adaptation. We have the anthropogenic nitrogen fixation also growing exponentially. We have the nitrogen fluxes to coastal zones growing exponentially. We have the loss of tropical rainforest also exponential. We have the species extensions also exponential. So everything seems to be exponential, including the number of McDonald's restaurants. So we are living in an exponentially changing world because of the Anthropocene. Some of the geological colleagues are arguing that Holocene is bye-bye because we have a new era where humanity was able to change the major fluxes that represent the functioning of the world. And as a net result of it, we have reached in certain departments planetary boundaries. If we go beyond those, then our systems will collapse. An interesting paper published by Rockström and company in the Nature has argued that when it comes to climate change and greenhouse gas releases to the atmosphere, we are beyond that limit, the planetary limit. This is the point of no return. That how they claim it. So that's a very, very touchy issue. We are in the same situation when it comes to biodiversity. When it comes to freshwater resources, however, they took a pretty relaxed view, saying that was 10 years ago. The water use at the time was 2,500 cubic kilometers a year. However, if you look at the time series, how water withdrawal has increased, we come to the conclusion that in about 5 years' time, we reach the limit of 4,000, what Rockström and company has set as a planetary limit. And from then on, our system starts to switch off. What we observe, and that has an enormous impact on arid lands and also on temperate zones. What we observe is a more frequent occurrence of the hydrological extremes. More floods on the one hand, and more droughts on the other end. Keeping the amount of water the same as it has been 10,000 years ago at the beginning of the Holocene. So that means that the hydrological cycle is accelerating because of the climate change, yielding an increased probability of both extremes. And that's a big challenge for the policy making. How to adapt to that thing? What sort of mechanisms we have? Do we have only structural means, or we do work together with nature and not against it? This is a paradigm change that basically happened over the past 30 years. Because what we see is really pretty much devastating. In France, some 3-4 years ago, in one day, the 7 months precipitation fell off, causing flash floods which were never experienced. And France has one of the most advanced flood management, including hydrological forecasting systems in Europe. people died. I mean, for the French, this is just not acceptable. Or if you look at not even a year ago, what happened in the western part of Germany as a result of Cyclone Bernd. Even today, in some villages, there is no electricity over there, or 200 kilometers to the west in Belgium, and never observed urban flooding. Or in Italy, a flash flood. Or if you go a bit out of the European scene, the big flood on the Indus River knocked out the economy of Pakistan for nearly 4 years, 40 billion US dollar damage. Then if you go to other parts of Asia, flash floods in India are coming up with an increasing frequency. So what do you do with that? And yet there are some who, well, are a bit skeptical about the climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a religious question. This is a fact. Particularly if you look at the statistics of the past 100 years of the major natural disasters, 90% of the disasters are caused by water, whether it's flood or drought. But drought is the biggest killer. How do you deal with that? How do you make ecosystem services work in that situation? From whatever direction we look at it, the conclusion is that age-old hypothesis upon which engineering structures have been designed, namely that of stationarity, that the system will behave the same way in the future and in the past, is not valid anymore. This is a big challenge for science. We have to change the approaches. There are new technologies from machine learning to artificial intelligence all the way through. For instance, what happens I'm coming from the south of Warsaw, Budapest is the place where I live now. We observed that the 100-year flood that statistically occurs once in 100 years occurs now every 20 years. So something has changed dramatically. Thank you. Will we have more floods and droughts? Yes, we have. Not only impacting the human lives, but also ecosystems. Particularly if you go beyond this point of no returns, then the ecosystem functions will be totally different. First of all, in big rivers like the Danube, because of the melting of the glaciers, the flow will increase for a while and then it will decrease. That will have an enormous impact, again, on the ecosystems. If you go to the coastal systems, the sea level rise, which is due to heat expansion, basically, plus melting water from Greenland and other areas, is already observable. And it's not excluded that by 2300 there will be several meters increase. That is a low probability event, I have to say, at the same time. And I don't have too many good news, ladies and gentlemen, because this process will continue. Even if you look at the region where we are now, in Central Europe, in the optimistic scenario, in the Warsaw-Budapest axis, the temperature will be increasing by 2.5 degrees, which will already cause ecological and hydrological instabilities. But if you look at the pessimistic scenario for the last 20 years of the century, then a 5-degree centigrade increase, that will change the whole thing, because we are indeed at a critical point, whether we continue or we try to stabilize how the system is behaving. At the end, all the climate change is all about water, and that's very important. That is very important. That is a message that we have to somehow be able to convey to the political community. They don't understand this whole thing at all. Now, let me just go to the good news. We have heard that we need some adaptive systems and we need new strategies for how to do that. There has been an incredible success in increasing the resilience of our systems, where the options are either we go to where the water is or we bring the water where we are. The adaptation options are numerous, from water governance all the way down to science-based decision support systems. The most important things, however, for our discussion for the coming 2 days is nature-based solutions. How do you do that? The Dutch have this system, more room for the rivers, and that's a very effective way of handling additional flows. Humanity needs more storage. That's exactly the problem, how we have to handle drought. And that's not an easy problem. The good news is that there has been an incredible progress over the past 30 years in science. We have 23 satellites going up there. 10 more seconds and then I will behave. We have 23 satellites up there that are every single day are relaying 1 exabyte hydrologically relevant data, which is 1 billion gigabyte. That's a huge baby. Now, how do we handle that? When I was a student at the beginning of the Holocene, we had the problem of not having enough data. Now we have too many. How do you filter out the information? By using learning algorithms. New technologies offer new opportunities. We have integrated systems. We can even now measure groundwater fluctuation from the space. Integrated systems for flood management. Big data algorithms are operating very, very fast. When I was a student under Professor, or rather I did my thesis with him, Professor Zdzislaw Kaczmarek, then we were, that was our daily prayer. Keep the world linear and Gaussian distributed. Because then we could do all the mathematical tricks. But now we can do almost anything. With the hydroinformatics as we have those days, that was 50 years ago, we had small-scale hydraulic models because very complex flow phenomena. That was a big deal to solve the unsteady flow equations, which is now the minimum requirement in hydraulics. My students are able to compute three-dimensional velocity fields. So it's an incredible progress. The summary is that probably we need to retool our water management practices based on sciences. And the 3 most important messages I would like to leave you with is go for nature-based solutions, reinvigorate experimental catchments. Now my students are computing flow up to the 7th digit. They have never measured flow. And they don't know that the precision in the best case is 20%. So experimental research has to be reinvigorated. And last but not least, combine the 2 and go digital. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andras, very much for your very interesting introduction. Actually, the scenario is that we both chair now the session, so if you can join me. And we smoothly went to your lecture, which is very good. We are a bit beyond our time. But I think there is time for 1-2 questions from the audience, if you have, to our speaker. Yeah, it was not very optimistic though, so but this is not the case. I'm sure we will ask those questions when we finish the session. There will be plenty, but we are a bit beyond the time frame. So may I ask the next speaker, who is Giuseppe Arduino. We already had a chance to introduce him very well at the so
too excited. I'm too excited. Sorry.
So please, and now it is really the case. Floor is yours.
Yeah, really mine. Thank you. Thank you very much, Andras, also for the enlightening bad news that you gave us. No, I mean, it's clear the situation is what it is, but also you leave us the hope. And I think that eco-hydrology can bring some hopes. And thank you also for the opportunity to present this preliminary study that is on eco-hydrology, its history. And although officially entered in the IHP program in 1996, this preliminary study would like to understand how this concept was designed, was conceived, and how it became from a pure scientific research to a solution-oriented science that able to address our major today's challenges like environmental, societal, and educational needs. So to do that, we need to go to understand what the IHP is. I think that everybody knows, but is maybe to recall it, is UNESCO's Intergovernmental Scientific Cooperation Program on Water, and it changed its name along the way, and not a long time ago, to intergovernmental from international, and has been started as a different asset. It was called International Hydrological Decade in 1965 and evolved from experimental models to societal needs, from pure research to water management, and then to societal aspects, and trying to do things in a holistic, system-wide way. Why we presenting this? Because now we go back to the very old times, and to understand if ecohydrology, how ecohydrology was coming into the scene. You see the different phases. You see the orange arrows. We are now in 81 and 84. During the second and the third phase, projects, there were a lot of projects. They were not a strategy, but were experimental projects, like 200 for each phases, in all different issues of water, all endeavors of water. And a few of them attempted to consider studies concerning determination, prediction, influence of men's, using still this term at that time, activities on the hydrological regime, and interaction of this activity with the environment. And also this attempted was, in the 80s, there were a lot of waterworks, either dams or whatever, water abduction tunnels. So there was starting the idea of impact assessments on the environment. So this project were trying to set up some indices on impact assessments of waterworks mainly. So in 1984, 1989, there's a little shift in the way that the IHP, which is this international, by the time, hydrological program, meets with another UNESCO program, which is the Man and the Biosphere, and it's the ecology part of the science sector of UNESCO. And they were starting some collaboration, mostly on hydrology of particular land areas, wetlands, humid tropical areas, and so on and so forth. But let's try to go back a little bit and open a parenthesis on what MAB is. MAB is, as I said, is a Man and Biosphere, and was launched in 71, so more or less at the time when the IHP started. And as soon as this program started, it was very clear that aquatic ecosystems became the subject of a special project due to the important changes inflicted by human activities. So attention was at the beginning on consequences of agriculture, soil eutrophication, groundwater pollution, erosion, and so on and so forth. Then after 15 years, in 1917, around the 80s, 85, 86, there were, the project was framed after two important workshops, one in France, in Toulouse, the other one in Hungary, in Sopron, and with the way to understand the impacts of land use on aquatic ecosystem. And one topic was crucial, and it was the study and the role played by ecotones. Ecotones are the interfaces, are the transition zones. Tonos means in Greek tension. So imagine the landscape divided in patches, and all patches have boundaries. Those are the ecotones. This is the places where most ecological and hydrological processes are occurring, and those are the most vulnerable and also most interesting places to study where processes are changing. So there is this famous publication of MAB on the ecotones in 1989. And during the preparation of this project, it was clear that hydrology had to be fully involved, and because of different hypotheses. One is sequence of flooding events affects the coupling of ecotones and adjacent ecosystem, and so on and so forth. So finally, the project launched by UNESCO in 1988 became a MAB IHP project based on cooperation of the two division of water sciences and ecological sciences. Now, there's another milestone during IHP3. It's an important publication. Sorry for the long writings, but the intention is also to write a paper on that. So many of ideas are there, but we try to go a little bit faster. So there's a milestone publication, is the regulation of riverine fish community by a continuum of abiotic factors. And this is a milestone because for the first time, the river system is taken as a reference point, and the hierarchy of biotic drivers is changing along the river continuum. So it's a different ascent, and this will lead a decade later, so in the 95, 96, to the understanding of the importance of hydrological processes and the biota structure interplay with hydrology. Going back to the IHP evolution, so in IHP4, we are in the 90s, 1990, 1995, while the first three phases was mainly oriented to international cooperation in hydrological science. This fourth phase has a well-defined title, which is Hydrology and Water Resources for Sustainable Development in a Changing Environment. And this means a clearer approach to the changes that are ongoing on the environment, so 30 years ago. And there's a clear shift from pure research-based knowledge to so the understanding of the cycle, so availability of water in all forms. And then the shift is from pure research and how do we manage this? How do we manage this water? And IHP continues with MAB in some of the projects, in particular the inland waterland ecotones in landscape management. What is interesting here that in 1995, Russia proposed, for example, the establishment of a center on ecohydrology, and but was never materialized. So the idea is in the 90s. The idea is coming out, and as said before, in 1996, the eco-hydrology program entered into the plan of the former International Hydrological Program. Now it's called Intergovernmental, from 2019. And during its fifth phase, named Hydrology and Water Resources Development in a Vulnerable Environment. See the orange arrow. We are almost in the middle, but anyway. And then I'm not sure if it is true, but because we were discussing with Andras this morning, due to a change in priority in 1995, MAB was not longer interested to continue with the ecotones and to fully support this project. But however, IHP with theme 2 that was devoted to eco-hydrological processes in superficial environment was able to link with this ecotone project in new frameworks of 2 projects. So here there's a shift because many of the experts working for MAB, and for example, Professor Maciej Zalewski is one of them, migrated from the idea to work with MAB and migrated to the IHP. So a new era is coming out. So we have a brain movement from a program to another. And also this is the time that, for example, in these 2 projects, in 2000, there is the journal that comes out. It's the eco-hydrology and hydrobiology. So it's been over 22 years. I think the impact factor now is over 3 point, from 2 or 3.1. There are also important publications that shown that the transdisciplinary character of eco-hydrology, and also the idea of the enhancement of catchment sustainability potential by this dual regulation of water biota interplay. Of course, the theoretical model is the one we're talking about on the abiotic-biotic regularity continuum concept. And finally, when we get to IHP6 in 2002, there is also a shift in the general strategy and objectives of the program that from water management, the program understands the importance of the social component, economic and environment. So water is no longer a scientific issue, but it becomes also a social, environmental, political issue. Anyway, this is the time that the dual regulation between these two phases, the fifth and the sixth, taking place. And dual regulation was explained before. It will be explained, I think, moreover. And I go fast because apparently I don't have time. And here in this particular phases, well, there is an important milestone is the establishment in 2006 of the European Regional Center for Eco-Hydrology of the Polish Academy of Sciences, established under the auspices of UNESCO, of which also I have the great pleasure to be affiliated with. And there is a shift from the pure studies also to the application of solution of eco-hydrology. That's why there are 10 demonstration sites established in different parts of the world, and also integration of harmonization with infrastructure and nature-based solutions. So we're talking about nature-based solution in eco-hydrology already more than 20 years ago. Again, in a different phase, we go up on the time in IHP 7 to 2008-13. Eco-hydrology has a dedicated team. We also have important educational program. One is the Erasmus Mundus course in eco-hydrology. And we had more than 120 students formed. And this is very important because those students that were that follow that course from Africa, from Latin America, they will then become actors of this program and propose centers, chairs, and also demonstration sites. So there are also important centers and chairs which are established during this period. One is the one in Portugal. We have the Asia Pacific Center for Eco-Hydrology in Indonesia. We have 2 chairs, one in China, one at the former UNESCO IHE Institute. And also starting with the concept of service delivered by the ecosystem. So talking about ecosystem services for society, for nature, and also increasing number of demonstration sites to demonstrate that solution applied are useful both for human and nature. Then we get to the first phase of the program, which is a longer phase, 8 years. It's starting in 2014. It's a phase on water security. And here again, eco-hydrology has a complete dedicated theme. It's theme 5. It's called Engineering Harmony for a Sustainable World. It has 5 focal areas, and it works on the concept that is already mentioned many times, on the theory to regulate hydrological and nutrient cycles in novel ecosystems the one that are coming from the Anthropocene, yeah, time out, I'm sorry. Anyway, there are parameters like water resources, biodiversity, bioproductivity, ecosystem services for society, resilience, and culture and education. It means that water and bioproductivity, increasing this carrying capacity of this, will provide services for society, and the use of infrastructure with nature-based solution would also be the resilience to impacts such as climate change, for example. And nothing of this can be achieved without participation of the communities, policymaker, and so on and so forth. Anyway, there are few success stories of this program due to a very strong scientific advisory committee, strong support from the eco-hydrology family, UNESCO family of water centers and chairs, 8 in total in all the continents. There's interactive tools, information technology also helping the dissemination of this, because there was a platform, everybody can go and see on the platform. There are training courses that organizes online for free with certification. There are new technologies also, new molecular tools like the innovative molecular tool based on DNA sequences. And also with the WWDR report from WAP UNESCO on nature-based solution, eco-hydrology has been using nature-based solutions for decades. So also the importance of eco-hydrology was taken on board more globally. The concept also, the paradigm between the sociocentric, mechanistic to evolutionary ecosystemic taken on board by different policies in different countries, and also by the European Commission Committee for Regions, without considering also, of course, the water for all. Anyway, last phase, last words. The new program it's more holistic. It's IHP 9, 2022-2029, and it's not comparted in silos. It attempts to have a more holistic approach. I don't talk more because time is out, and also because Elfitu will speak about this in detail. So thank you so much for your patience and attention for this. Thank you. Now I try not to fall.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Giuseppe. For this excellent overview. And from Andras, we know what challenges we have. And from you, we know how UNESCO is going to tackle those kinds of problems. So are there any quick questions? Because we are a little bit beyond time at the moment. So if not, I'm sure we will have a debate during the break. So let's go to the next speaker, but it will be your role now. So.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Let us examine now what's going to happen in the coming 8 years. What are the strategic plans? And we have here Dr. Elfiti Rahman, who will give us this presentation on the future of eco-hydrology in the coming 8 years. Please, what is yours?
Okay, good morning, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to meet you here in Poland. My name is Rahma Elfitri. I'm the new Chief of Section for Capacity Development and Water Family Coordination in UNESCO. I'm very much new in UNESCO, just going to 2 months, like 1 month and a half. Recently joined UNESCO. And previously I was in Malaysia, 15 years working in Malaysia as professor and also researcher there in the National University of Malaysia. But of course, I work on eco-hydrology quite longer also with Giuseppe and Prof. Zalewski, of course, Luis Cicero, Pascal, and others since 2010. So that was among my involvement in eco-hydrology. And in fact, today is my first time present on behalf of UNESCO, because before this, I always present sharing my eco-hydrology demonstration site in Malaysia, which is Putrajaya Lake and Wetlands. But today I will share with all of you about eco-hydrology in UNESCO. And yeah, so I'm not replacing, like, I don't know, people in UNESCO call me the new Giuseppe because I took over his position on eco-hydrology, water quality, and water education. So I hope I will inherit his wisdom also, and knowledge, and maybe the award next time from Poland, Polish Academy of Science. Okay, so this is just a quick summary, because Giuseppe also already shared with all of us about the previous ISP especially, but this one specifically on eco-hydrology, which is started or introduced in UNESCO since 1996 during the ISP 5, eco-hydrology as new paradigm for the sustainable use of aquatic resources. And in 2010, only the first time the eco-hydrology demonstration site, or at the time we call it eco-hydrology demonstration project, was launched and called for proposal submission for proposal from all countries. And at the time, we have about 32 demonstration project, and it categorized as a global reference project, operational project, evolving project, and also emerging projects. That was in the beginning. And then in 2015, when Giuseppe initiated another, a new restructuring or revitalization of eco-hydrology program, there is no longer categorization based on category as the previous category for the type of the demonstration project. Instead, the focus is more on the ecosystem base, which is based on the basin, inland wetlands, rivers or lake, and also estuaries or coastal water. So that is the new framework introduced during that time. And until Giuseppe retired, or by the end of 2021, the current list of eco-hydrology demonstration site as the total list is 29 in 19 countries. So now in the 2000, in the ISP 9, we plan to have more eco-hydrology demonstration site, because this is not much as compared to many others eco-hydrology project or program implemented in other countries. So this is our main agenda for the UNESCO ISP 9 actually. So, okay, as I think Abu was already present, share with us. In fact, Andras and all of us today already mentioned about the 5 priorities areas in UNESCO ISP 9. So for the first one, scientific research, and then water education, bringing data and knowledge, gaps, IWRM, and also water governance. So this actually this aspect will need eco-hydrology implementation within these priority areas for, in terms of scientific research, in terms of water education, because we need eco-hydrology also there. And for this working group that established under for the priorities areas, we have also additional cross-sectoral group, which the first additional cross-sectoral group will be specifically focused on eco-hydrology and water quality, which is currently under my section. And also there is another additional sectoral cross-sectoral group, which is groundwater and also hydrological system and climate change. So as I mentioned, the 5 priority areas in UNESCO have specific needed and focus on eco-hydrology implementation in each aspect, including research and for the data related to data, and IWRM implementation. Water education, of course, it is a transdisciplinary discipline that transdisciplinary that involved in all aspects, whether it is eco-hydrology or water quality. So as you see here, eco-hydrology and water quality is directly under my section, which is the important thematic groups under UNESCO ISP 8, 9, ISP 9. And water education as transdisciplinary approach will be involved or related to these two aspects, whether in eco-hydrology or water quality, we need the water education for implementation of these two components. And I want to highlight also this UNESCO water family because it is also directly under my section. And we have, of course, direct category 2 center on eco-hydrology and also UNESCO chair related to eco-hydrology. As you seen there, we for the category 2 center, we have actually almost in all region, at least we have in Europe, which is Poland, Ethiopia, in Africa, and Indonesia representing Asia Pacific, and for Latin America, which is in Brazil and Paraguay. And some UNESCO chairs directly on eco-hydrology, which is in China, Portugal, Poland, and Tanzania. And in terms of number of water family, we have currently total 68 chairs and 29 centers. And not only these chairs and center, but World Water Assessment Program is also part of the water family, and also all ISP committees in all member states and others program flagship initiative and also partner or expert which is related to water around the world. So specifically, the program eco-hydrology program within the ISP ISP 9 will promote the integration of social, ecological, and hydrological research, and to generate outcomes that enable the development of effective policies and practices for IWRM. And ISP will support a program related to research, of course, research, networking, capacity building, or increasing the comprehension of the role, different types of ecosystem, and then related to sharing knowledge on the integration of eco-hydrological technologies, and also developing catchment scale eco-hydrological early warning system. That is among the support. And for the specific program, we want or we will develop and enhance more scientific research. So we will expected to publish more in journal or any book publication or brochure related to eco-hydrology, which we will need collaboration with all of you, with UNESCO Chair, UNESCO Center, and all water family. And we will also the plan during the ISP 9 will increase the promotion and also establishment of new eco-hydrology demonstration site. As I mentioned just now, currently we have only 29. We want more demonstration site. So currently Nigeria, Tanzania, Madagascar, and Tunisia already expressed their interest that they want to have new demonstration site. So let's see the process because there are some requirements needed and need to fulfill, and then evaluation by the committee. And so if this new demo site or proposed demo site can achieve all the requirement, then maybe it will become a new demonstration site in the future. But of course, we encourage other countries or expert or ecology expert or any interested parties to propose a new demonstration site. And within UNESCO, we will launch a call for submission new eco-hydrology demonstration site letter shortly after this. And for further information about the eco-hydrology demonstration site, the criteria or the requirement are all available in this website, eco-hydrology-isp.org. And you can also see others demonstration sites, which the others 29 demonstration sites in this website, which also with the specific eco hydrology demo site card, which we produce for each ecohydrology demo site. So all information is there. Another specific target for this ISP 9, we want to develop ecohydrology approach within UNESCO designated sites. So not only river or wetlands or lake or any other ecosystem, but if possible, we want to promote this approach to be implemented in the current UNESCO designated sites, which is their UNESCO Biosphere Reserve, UNESCO World Heritage Site, or UNESCO Global Geopark, which currently some of them may be facing issues related to water and environment. So if possible, we can introduce this ecohydrology demonstration, this ecohydrology approach, and encourage the implementation of this ecology to improve the current situation of water, environment, and community participation in this area. And possibly they will become a new demonstration site. And if in the future, when they achieve this another level of demonstration site, it means this site not only becoming for example, Global Geopark, they are not only implementing Global Geopark, but at the same time, they also conserving the water and environment in their designated site. So that is the main intention. There are many UNESCO designated sites in each country, so we can start to promote this initiative. And also, last but not least, the most important component activities that we will conduct this year related to capacity building for improved water management. There will be many trainings related to ecohydrology, or workshop or symposium like today, that we can improve or promote the ecohydrology implementation at all levels. And this is another unique program, committee maybe. Within our program, we have specific ecohydrology scientific advisory committee, which other program don't have this kind of scientific advisory committee. So currently we have this all name. Prof. Zaleski is there as a chair, and Professor Luis Cesaro also here as a vice chair, and we have also Pascal here as one of the member. In fact, myself, before this, I was one of the committee core member of this subcommittee. At the time, I was still in National University of Malaysia. So this list was extended until end of 2021. So our plan is tomorrow, actually, we will have specific meeting for this because some of us are here, and some member that are not presented directly, we invited them to join online to revise or restructure this committee, because this committee is very critical, because currently the approval of new demo site only approved by a scientific advisory committee. If the subcommittee is not there or no longer active, for example, or not valid because not renew, not extended the appointment. So how can we approve the new demo site? Because so this one need to revise. And unfortunately, this is the current situation, also lack of gender, because before this, I was the only woman in this committee. We need more women in this committee. And if possible, also to represent all region, because currently mostly in Europe, and 2 from Asia Pacific. That's all. And previously 1 from Latin America, but no longer joined. And so we need to also revise this TOR of committee, and also the assessment or monitoring program, because how is the current procedure of submission. So these all things we will review tomorrow, probably during the SAC meeting. And I have also, just to share you a little, the analysis of the current SAC from our consultant, Jose Guana, because he just submitted his report. In fact, the weaknesses, for example, the weaknesses of this SAC member, because mostly based on the European institution, and then make it difficult for students not studying in Europe to be able to inquire this knowledge. and then focus on small problem solving. And also that another trait, all members are mostly academician, so not really represent all. Okay, so that's all. As a conclusion, of course, it is transdisciplinary sustainability design, and we need to implement the integrated approach that promoted by Prof. Zaleski, which is BSR plus culture and education to make sure eco-hydrology to achieve SDG goal. Thank you very much. Please join our network on eco-hydrology, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Rahman. Is there any quick question? If not, then tonight we will transform ourselves into the International Wine Program, and there will be plenty of opportunities to discuss this. We now move to the regional aspects, and our dear colleague Shahbaz Khan, Professor Khan, will join us from the Beijing office that he directs. But he's a normal human being. He's a hydrologist, not just a director. Shahbaz, are you there? Hi, Shahbaz, welcome.
Hydrology and Water Security Symposium. Thank you very much for inviting me to give you some ideas on the state of art on eco-hydrology and nature-based solution, the concepts of dual regulation and integrated management, how they are emerging and being modified with new ideas. And I will be also giving some focus to China, which has done wonderful work in moving towards eco-civilization, which I will be introducing today. And there are some very interesting trends in restoration of ecosystems, as well as enhancing not only just the functions from an eco point of view, but from eco services point of view. So as we know, the eco water values, where we have the ecosystems, and the ego water values, where we have the ego, human ego at the center. So like industries have a right to pollute rivers, and unfortunately, in many countries, still this is a valid paradigm in Asia and in other parts of the world. Dams add value to rivers. So those are still maybe some of the ideas. We can build walls to contain floods to any levels. And urban waterscapes are not desirable. They're like swamps. How do we get rid of them? Indigenous communities have no water rights, and water policies should be set by experts. So still, there are issues in Asia Pacific on ego water values, but I'm very pleased to also note and give these ideas that the world is moving, Asia Pacific is moving towards eco water values. Water pollution is illegal and immoral. Some dams should be removed and new dams should be avoided. So this is part of the national legislation in many countries. For example, in Australia, with the national water plans and with the Murray-Darling basin plans, urban waterscapes connect water, connect people, connect businesses. Indigenous communities should control their traditional waters, and all stakeholders should jointly decide on water policies. So role of local indigenous knowledge, the ideas linked with ecosystems are becoming more and more well accepted as part of integrated water resource management. Rivers and ecosystems have water rights. We need participatory approaches. So eco-hydrology is at the center of it, and that's where SDG 6 and water security and the role of international environmental law, they are key towards achieving the SDGs and SDG number 6 on water security. So philosophically, what, how, and why we can do things together. So I'm sure we have been working on the ideas of bringing the triple bottom line, society, environment, and economy. But now how do we bring the politics and culture together? So by bringing the triple bottom line, we have been looking into what we call the ecologically sustainable development. But now with politics and culture, we are looking into ecological civilization. This is the paradigm President Xi Jinping has given as a key paradigm for China, and let me highlight some of it. And there are some interesting results which are coming through. Going back to the traditional wisdom and eco-traditions like Confucianism, Taoism, Buddhism. So in these very important traditional wisdom, unity of nature and human, and how humans have been modeled to the nature, all living things are equal, they're very much aligned with the eco-ideology and nature-based solutions. Ecological interpretation of Marxism has also put a very important relationship between man and nature and harmonious development of nature, human, and society. And also, there is a need for bringing the domestic and global practices together. We need to get rid of some of the old paradigms as pollute first, treat later, to consider environmental problems as part of the sustainable development, and how can we learn from our past and do better with nature-based solutions, eco-hydrology, water security, how these can be integrated together. As I highlighted before, this eco-civilization as a new paradigm. So here is an example phrase from President Xi Jinping: lucid waters and lush mountains are invaluable assets. So linking mountains and the waters already gives you an idea of the whole of the catchment approach. That's where ecology is considered as type of assets. Ecology is changing, and we need to bring natural capital and economic development together. So this is the idea. Here you see one of the Sai Hanba National Forest Park, China, the largest man-made woodland, giving an excellent example of how we can bring vegetation and water and the dual regulation together. So also very importantly, how we continue to go on commercial industrial development, moving from commercial and industrial civilization where the tensions between economic development and human ecological sustainability are so high, towards ecological civilization, focusing on protection, focusing on development, focusing on transforming without changing the current path of the development, but looking into what can be better way forward with the lesser pollution and lesser footprints. So of course, the policy is the steering wheel, the ecological civilization, which I have introduced. And how do we bring technologies like the smarter monitoring and understanding the water cycle and linking with the different functions of the ecosystems and ecosystem services, and how do we bring education and culture together? So from steering wheel to engine to vision, working together to change society to create water security. China has successfully experimented since 2007 with the river chief system. RCS was introduced in Wuxi city in 2007, so only about 15 years ago, where cyanobacterial pollution was very, very high. So if we remember also some of the presentations given by Professor Zalewski about UCH, there is interesting learnings here as well. So as a pilot for 10 years, it has been trialed in different cities, and it has been launched about 5 years ago nationwide. And River Chief system is really working well, and I will show you an example. And this is really the new paradigm coming from Asia with the traditional wisdom and the governance systems which are coming. So along the different branches of our river systems, we can make people responsible and accountable. So with a system of sticks and carrots, linking the people and actors at different levels, from the level of the counties, townships, cities, all the way to the level of the province and different levels of the government, also bringing different aspects of water management, environment, looking also into water security for cities, looking into management of groundwater, surface water, and how this whole system can work together, but with better data which can be provided through technologies. So how do we continue to have trans-jurisdictional coordination on nature-based solution and eco-hydrology, and how these different actors at different levels of the rivers and the catchments can work together, and coordinating the work all the way from lower level to the higher level, with clear responsibilities, differentiated responsibilities. So basically defining the property rights for pollution and making sure the polluter pays principle is applied by penalizing those counties or those areas which have high levels of pollution and rewarding those who are doing the right thing. And that's where very important, another Asian paradigm is 9 dragons managing the river system. How do we do assessment and accountability, and how water bodies can work together under a pyramid of this ecological civilization and river chief system. So here is an example of a lake I have personally visited, and this is now part of the eco-hydrology demonstration projects. It's 28 kilometers west of the Guiyang city in the Guizhou province. So you can see the location. It's in south of China. It's a very big area, 57.2 square kilometers with a depth of more than 10 meters. On the average is 10 meters, maximum 45 meters. It holds a lot of water. So in terms of the millions of, more than 600 million meter cubes, it has a number of rivers flowing into it. And you can now imagine the river chief system working along the rivers and in the lake. And it is serving a population of 3 million people for their hydropower, for flood control, for water supply, for recreation, and many commercial uses as well. There is a big body of knowledge which is available here. And I'm very pleased to note that there are papers which are discussing dual regulation, eco-biotechnologies, phytotechnologies, environmental flows, water security, and water supply. So there are more than 500 papers. More than 400 are in national and local journals, and there are 75 international journal papers. So I think this needs to be taken to the next level from a management point of view. So before this lake was with a lot of development on its banks with many polluting residential and industrial development. And you can see here, all of this has been removed. A clear ecotone has been formed. And over a very short period of time, the water quality in the lake has been improved. There is a big recreational and educational use. So I'm in this picture at the lake itself. There is no illegal fishing which is allowed, and also making sure the ecological assets, the birds and the fish, they are being protected in the best possible way. The leadership is at the level of the city mayor. So here is Mayor Wang, who is taking care. Also, the private sector is establishing with UNESCO an education center, several stakeholders, including the municipal government, including the real estate, including the key state laboratories and the universities, as well as the research centers from the Chinese Academy of Sciences working with UNESCO to make it as a best practice, and also a key demonstration of eco-hydrology, nature-based solutions with ecological civilization. So this is now a demonstration site. It has the scientific basis. We are working on the baseline data, and with the educational facilities, we can go all the way from the high-level policy to making sure things are working, and with the education programs linked with the universities and the research, which continues to improve, and the value of waterscapes has improved so much, the value of the property there. With that, I thank you. Thank you for inviting me again. I look forward to learning more about the conference and look forward to hearing from the wisdom of the pillars of IHP, the key professors who are here. Thank you. Have a wonderful conference.
Thank you so much, Shabazz. Thank you. We will miss you tonight, but certainly we'll share the recommendations of this meeting.
Thank you very much. We should switch to another presenter, but I'm not sure whether we have already connection with Professor Lee. Do we have no? So it seems we need to skip this talk for a while, and let's move to another speaker, Professor Mario Mendiongo from Water Resources Engineering, São Carlos School of Engineering of the University of São Paulo in Brazil. I understand we don't have the connection with him as well.
Are you seeing me? Good morning.
We have the connection. That's fantastic. We do see you. I understand it's very early morning in Brazil. We are more advanced, so please.
Okay. So are you hearing me? Okay.
We are. Please go ahead.
I am sharing my presentation. Are you seeing my presentation? Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So there is one echo in the background. Perhaps there is a microphone open. Okay. So thank you for this invitation. I would like to congratulate Professor Zalewski, Professor Powell, also the staff for the organization of this event, and also the UNESCO family here. My presentation is related to eco-hydrology for water security in the Global South through cooperative solutions for transboundary challenges. So I put together a group of early career scientists and also a balanced group with half of women and half of men coming from the Global South and part of the co-authors also working in countries like Colombia and Germany and United States, mostly of them coming from Brazil. So we are representing the University of São Paulo by myself, the Center of Education and Research on Disasters, and the UNESCO Chair on Urban Water, Quality Management and Recovery and Reuse, and also the Pantarai initiative worldwide, Everything Flows, about the coevolutionary aspect about science and education. So my introduction is related to the UNESCO HP phase. The new phase running incorporates the eco-hydrological science for water security in a changing environment. But the impact of COVID pandemic and recently food insecurity both accelerate the usability of eco-hydrological nature-based solutions as cooperative as transboundary. So I would like to point here one concept paper co-authored by Professor Powell, Jarosiewicz, Stefano Passi, and Professor Zalewski on how to use eco-hydrological nature-based solutions in water quality management. So the point is, how can we scale these eco-hydrological nature-based solutions? So this is one picture of an urban park here in São Paulo city, in the countryside of São Paulo state in Brazil. As an inspiration for the objective is to share recent interdisciplinary examples of these nature-based solutions linked to, as Professor Zalewski mentioned before, the main goal of water, biodiversity, ecosystem services for society, resilience to climate change, and the cultural heritage. So sorry, there is one alarm here. Sorry. There is another concept paper for low-cost natural-based solutions for managing aquatic resources and the integrating principles of eco-hydrology related to circular economy. That is also open access. Mostly, my message is that the main driver of this adaptation should be through education and science. So here is a timeline during the pandemic, the COVID pandemic in Brazil. We promoted open science for Pantaray Open Science for a Future Earth, envisioning a post-pandemic resilient society, and also with several campaigns of popularization of science, one drop of science, one dose of resilience through the UNESCO chair. Also working with a group of early career scientists. Here, this is part of the lab, working in the field before and after the COVID. Also making citizen science as part of the main connection for the popularization of science with eco-hydrology. So the aspect on the message is how can we introduce the cooperative eco-hydrological nature-based solutions into these goals of water, biodiversity, ecosystem services for society, resilience to climate change, and cultural heritage. So the aspect we put here is the concept of STEAM: science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So with different aspects of gaming, serious games, also with the vulnerable community. Some examples I would like to share with you, coming from the Global South, most of them coming from Brazil. One of them is the circular framework with feedbacks, scales, and stakeholders. We see here the stepwise aspect of ecosystem assessment, ecosystem sustainability, ecosystem resilience. Also, we can couple different models of risk-based analysis or from IPCC, water footprint, or even ecosystem-based adaptation. And here, different colors means different environments which acknowledge the different interdisciplinary groups from early career scientists. So the flexibility to adapt to different approaches is crucial, and the high recursivity on feedback loops in order to introduce these different spatial temporal scales and among different stakeholders. Here, for this example, we have the different ecosystem services, the payment for ecosystem services projects we have running in Brazil, mainly in the Atlantic rainforest, related to the river pulse patterns in biomes, flood rating curves, flow duration curves, and stakeholders risk aversion. We are going also, that is also published. Another example coming is also to be adapted for different places is a multi-stage disaster risk reduction, DRR management, in order to introduce the risk aversion framework and the willingness to adapt ability under non-stationarity to stationarity conditions. So the gap we have between non-stationary to stationary curves is as we define as the willingness to adapt for a society. Also, this is a published work to be shared and to be adapted. And also in the right part, we see the students making the analysis of feelings scenarios in a normal urban river. Another example is the ecosystem-based evaluation. Evaluation using water footprint. We are decomposing for different catchments, different sizes, in order to have a simple approach to be adapted to different river basin committees. Also, that could be adapted to South American, Latin American countries, African countries, and Asian countries, also published. So here we introduce valuation methods, the conservation effects, and the restoration impacts. And we can value that in order to have and support for decision making. So the second question is how can we communicate these eco-hydrological nature-based solutions as cooperative as transboundary? So here is a very nice picture from the Atlantic rainforest. This is São Bento do Sapucaí in the São Paulo state, Brazil. Also looking for pristine conditions in order to have restoration projects, feasible restoration projects. And in this example, this is a restoration project that this is running, introducing water quality scenarios of ecosystem-based adaptation. Here, I make a specific comment from the modeled water yield in liters per second per square kilometers. Here is the fraction of the river basin being covered by forest, mixed covers. And here we have three scenarios. Decaying, this is normally occurred in the textbooks as the more fraction of forest we have in the river basin, we have more evapotranspiration, and of course the water yields is decline. Also, we have a threshold here after the introduction of some exotical cultures or vegetation like the pinus. But here we have a green line that is increasing the water yield with increasing of the fraction of the forest. And that is not a paradox, but this is an offset, because when we convert these exotical forests into native forests, we have a gap in terms of evapotranspiration. That is a trade-off for the system. That's also very important, coming from hydrological science, that is science evidence, scientific evidence, and also to be adapted for different nested catchment scales ranging from 10 square kilometers to 1,000 square kilometers running just in South America. So the water cycle changes, the ecophysiological patterns, the scaling problems, and the scenario criteria and assessment coupled with field observations are crucial here. Other examples in smaller scales in urban catchments is bioretention systems for sustainable stormwater management, also from street scale, for the lot scale, or even for the sub-basin. Other example is related to the online in situ water quality monitoring. We have a very good review and state of the art in terms of physically based methods. The sensors and technology increasing during the last 10 years, and the empirical evidence that we can adapt in the labs test with calibration and validation. Digital twins is an increasing an emerging area related to eco-hydrology. That is, we have high promising in this area, also related to citizen data and entities, and a flexible topology of problems. So the third question is, how can this eco-hydrological nature-based solution reimagine, or help us to reimagine habitats, restore landscapes, and recreate, why not, the job market for vulnerable communities? This is one example coupling the climate change outputs with hydrological models, introducing low impact development, LID here, and comparing these scenarios with and without a low impact development in terms of the production of the peak of rainfall, the stream flows, or even pollutant yields in catchments. So collected with citizen science evidence, flood observations, and historical and future changes. One of the last slides I'm going to introduce is about optimization. So all the things we can optimize in a decision-making real-time approach for different catchments using different digital combinations. So the real-time control, the smart, for instance, urban drainage systems, the control theory, the model predictive control, and some rule-based control could be acknowledged here. So last but not least, some example related to insurance. So here we are introducing eco-hydrology natural-based solutions with insurance mechanisms like risk transfer mechanisms coupled with climate change, and the idea of how is the cost for a water utility company to maintain a long-term solvency for a mega city like São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, Bogota, Buenos Aires, Santiago, for instance. The stormwater reuse is an evidence increasing in the global south. And here we can see us increasing the rainwater harvesting. We can have the decision making for not building new dams in order to store water and also to make a decentralization. So a summary of this evidence as a final remarks is that with the augmenting inequality in the global south, these feasible eco-hydrological nature-based solutions can be adapted at low-cost layouts by participatory schemes and serious gains, also with education in the classes, and to thrive circular economy, a zero net transition, and of course, peace around the Agenda 2030. So in the signboard on the right is in a Portuguese. I take it in visiting the beach in Brazil that say people do not pollute, please, but evolve. So thank you very much, and I'm very open to questions. And of course, I wish you a very and wonderful and fruitful conference and symposium. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Are there any questions, brief questions from the audience? We are a little beyond time. There are no questions from here, so it's a very pity you are not with us. We cannot meet over dinner, for example. We had a very interesting lesson, and then we can learn a lot of lessons from this fantastic session. I would say in a few words that no matter where we are, Brazil, China, Europe, we face huge challenges, and then most of them are related to the situation that we have. Maybe we already surpassed some tipping points in terms of climate, or we are close to it, so it causes huge challenges for us. And I feel that important message is that we have a huge knowledge gained, and then we know a lot how to solve different problems. And the main challenge is to bridge various worlds. I mean, the world of science, the world of decision makers, and also of the society. And then this is probably the challenge for all of us for the nearest future, how to work out this good communication between those, to some extent, separate worlds. And it also seems that nature-based solutions is something that is a remedium for many problems that we face all over the world. Andras, maybe you would like to.
Well, I think one of the lessons I learned, at least from this session, is that we are in the middle of a paradigm change. Yet another principal paradigm is changing. 40 years back, the goal was human development, and the environment was considered as a constraint in all our optimization models. But where we are now is environmental sustainability became an objective itself, not as a constraint. And that's totally different. That requires a different approach. I think the other lesson what I learned from this session is that perhaps we ought to combine our forces in a bit more organized fashion. The intergovernmental part, IHP, as an example, but the non-governmental part, such as the Sustainable Water Future Program, which is a part of the Future Earth, that's a huge ICSU program dealing with water, or the Water for All program. So I see a lot of opportunity for convergence, and not just formally, but really bringing together joint working parties. For all my sins, now I'm leading the Sustainable Water Future Program, and we already started to have a discussion with the IHP Secretariat to combine forces. But here comes a problem. We don't want, I'm sorry to say that, Giuseppe, I knew that when we were serving as humble servants for this sentence, I would have been fired immediately from UNESCO service. We don't want to have science subject to government approval. So we would not like to have it under an intergovernmental council, but half of the people are scientists, the other half are government bureaucrats. And that's the problem. And this is the problem that has always been hanging around with IHP. And people are asking the question, why is IHP so strong? Because governments are there. At the same time, if they are asking the question, why is IHP weak? Because governments are there. Sometimes they act as a low-pass filter. They don't. Governments are very conservative by definition. They don't encourage new ideas. They don't encourage new approaches. Yet they have the sources. And the strength of IHP, and this perhaps could also be seen in the hydroecology program, is that it combines the academic community. More academic communities are there. But as the paradigm changes, slowly, hopefully, one thing that most of you were even born when the IHP, at the time it was called the International Hydrological Decade, in 1964, started with a major program on establishing experimental stations all over the world. There were hundreds of them. And governments pumped in money in order to understand the workings of the hydrological cycle. And basically that gave rise to hydrology as it was basically an empirical stuff, regression analysis, all that. Then with all these new data, there was an in-depth understanding on how the cycle is functioning. And then modeling came over. The no PhD dissertation was considered serious. 200 hyperbolic partial differential equation. But the measurements disappeared. So when I did my PhD, I was number crunching and not measuring anything. Now perhaps you have to go back and re-establish this. This is what we are proposing to create a network of hydroecological experimental basins where the hydrological elements along with are concurrently measured on a database, and joint models could be, I'm going to finish anyway. Joint models could be developed for the benefit of governments, so they can play with. 40 years back, if you showed the government bureaucrat that you could change the boundary condition here and there, you can simulate the response. Those guys have no idea what we're talking about. But now it changed, because they are the way of scenario assessment and scenario analysis, what will happen if, is deeply enshrined in the brains of government policy making. They have no other options. So perhaps we have to take the whole thing yet to another level and combine hydrology and ecology into a joint approach. And as the hydrologists say, hydrology.
So I think we should finish this session and give you a chance for a coffee break. I understand now. But it's okay.
Group photo. I propose senior here and younger reply.
Okay, and then we have like 15 minutes break. So.